Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It's August 9th when I'm recording this. Hope you guys are doing well. It has been a very interesting week, hasn't it? We definitely got a big pullback last Friday, and that was great. That was everything I was expecting. And since then, the major markets have continued to crawl higher, but the rest of everything else kind of has been coming down. Plus, we have this earnings chaos that's been happening. I think we've been seeing this has been one of the crazier earnings seasons that I've seen. Big moves in both directions. Okay, it does feel like maybe we've had a little bit more to the upside. But we've had a lot, and they have definitely been big in both directions. So it has been a lot to kind of handle as far as earnings go. On that note, I also want to show you guys how to choose the right stock. This was the latest in the breakout sessions that I did. And this was showing you guys how some of these bigger names have been developing. Like if you ever wanted to get into a Palantir before it took off, I'm going to show you what that looks like. If you want to get into some of these things before they really start to move, I'm going to go through kind of the ingredients that it takes to make that happen. So if you guys are interested, make sure you come over to simplertrading.com/Moxie. You can sign up, and these are all recorded. So even if you guys sign up now or sometime in the future, you can go back and you can pick these up in the Learning Center. So we had a great time with it. It's about an hour-and-a-half class, and I think it really opened some eyes for the subscribers who were watching it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about mega caps versus the rest of the market. Obviously, Apple. Apple finally gets into the game. Interesting stuff with Tim Cook and Donald Trump. So we can talk a little bit about that. And then down versus sideways. We got the big down move I was looking for last Friday. And yes, I was prepared for the market to bounce, but it seems to be bouncing a little bit more than I thought. I'll show you what that looks like. And then, of course, earnings chaos. It has been wild out there. And then just a couple comments. Luis is new to the room, and he said he's extremely happy to be here. So thank you, Luis. And then Yishin, he's been around for a while, inspired by my technical analysis. So I just want to show you these are some comments that people have been, talking about inside of the room. So if you guys have been wanting to join, come. We're having a great time. So some good stuff out there. And then over here, the internals. This is a new one that I want to show you. I talk about it all the time into my room. It is showing me some stuff that I just thought you guys should be aware of, so that's why I wanted to highlight it. And then BMNR, we took a trade on that. We're up 35% already. It was kind of a big deal this week. And then ALAB, we cashed out of that for the last position that I had on it, 470%, just after earnings with the calls that we had on that one. So we'll go start going through this. Remember, since you guys are watching this on YouTube, to like and subscribe, and that this is for educational purposes only. All right, so here is the new screen that I created. And what this is to show you is the mega caps versus the rest of the market. So we have the SPX up top, and we have the RSP down below, so it's basically, cap weighted versus equal weighted. And there is a very big difference between these two. And if you look here, you can see the S&P, everything dipped on Friday. You guys know I made a big video about that, very exciting, got the downside move. And then I was fully expecting price to bounce from that, but after that, I was kind of expecting price to run into resistance and actually start coming down a little bit and at least retest the lows. And you can see that for the most part, the RSP did exactly that. It did bounce, it ran into resistance, and it's kind of been coming down a little bit. And you can even see here that the RSP has come down to its daily 50. Now, these moving averages don't always matter on these things, so I'm not going to say that, the SPX should right now be down at the daily 50, but I was expecting the SPX at some point to probably meet the daily 50, and it still very well might, but I don't necessarily know how it's going to. And that's the whole thing about you can have a target, but you don't know really what path the market is going to take to get there. But anyway, you can see just the stark difference between, say, the S&P 493 versus, say, the Mag 7. And Apple was a big component of that over the last few days, basically helping to keep the market propped up. Tesla started to get involved. Google was starting to get involved. And then we know, last week we had Meta and Microsoft that also kept the market up, or at least, popped it up and then it sold off. So this is a big difference, okay? The fact that the S&P has continued to press higher like this and is basically right back at its previous all-time high area is a huge difference than from what we're seeing here with the rest of the market, which is actually significantly down. And this kind of goes along with what we were talking about with August being seasonally weak, and we can see that divergence in through here. And so this really shows you that it is the mega caps kind of acting as a flight to safety. It's kind of the AI trade. Apple is now getting back into the game and is keeping something like the SPX, the SPX up compared to the RSP. Now let me show you even the NASDAQ. You can go look over here. Here's the QQQ. And we have the daily on the left, hourly on the right for both of these. And look at this, QQQE, which is the equal weight of the Qs, QQQE. And I want to show you again, if we zoom in on this and look at these, and you come over here and look at this, and you can see, again, almost back to previous all-time highs. Very, very strong. And we know that the NASDAQ is cap-weighted with the big names, think Apple and all those kind of stuff that have been just moving, and NVIDIA, and yeah, I mean, pretty wild. Look at the stark difference between the equal weight and the cap-weighted. Just like the RSP, all the way back down on its daily 50, you've got the 8 below the 21. Look at this. You have price that basically sideways, if not down. And this is why for those of you who are in the Moxie room and see my trading, this is why I was hanging on to several of the short, the downside plays that I was looking at. Because if you look at the equal weight, this is what I was expecting the market to do, is to roll over. Yes, we had a big move down on last Friday. I was expecting a little bit of a bounce because, well, you get such a big move down, you're going to get some retracement. But then generally speaking, I was expecting to kind of fade a little bit lower. And you can see that the NASDAQ absolutely did not do that, but the rest of the market did. And that was a very interesting thing to see this week. So not only did we have earnings chaos of what was happening, we've had this now drastic and severe bifurcation of the market to where it is the mega caps and just a handful of them that have been keeping the market up compared to the rest of the market that has been coming down. It's made trading a little bit challenging this week. I also don't like to trade earnings, so largely I have been just having to wait till a stock that I want to trade has earnings, and then I can trade after it. Now, the only other problem with that, like say SoundHound, I really want to trade SoundHound, but I don't want to trade it going into earnings just because you never know, and they gap up. Well, I can't just go buy a gap like that, so I have to wait. Or we've seen something like AFRM, same thing, gapped up on earnings, ran for a few days. However, AFRM has now come back down into a potentially good buyable spot. So usually if you just give yourself some time, or give the market some time, even if there's a gap up, you usually can find another opportunity to get into this. And that's why I've had to kind of just lay low during this very, very crazy earnings season. Now, the other thing that I want to show you as we talk about this here, down versus sideways. And this is the thing that I'm having to kind of recalculate in my head to figure out what this market might be doing. Because I'm looking at this push-pull, and because the mega caps are up here, they're basically double topping. Okay, they are coming up into some upper resistance. I'm not sure if they're going to just immediately get to push through, or if they're going to run into resistance and start pulling back. We do kind of have a busy week with some economic data. I think FOMC or some news like that is going to be coming out. I need to look at the calendar. But I remember thinking this is going to be kind of a big week. And options expiry is this week. Monthly options expiry is this week. So we might have some more kind of chaos that's happening out there. And so what I'm wondering is if these mega cap-weighted indices are going to pull back a little bit. Because remember, even if these things they trade sideways, they can still come down. But if they trade down at all, then that's going to mean these are going to go down even further. Now, if that doesn't happen, then what I'm wondering is if this actually stays strong, what if the equal weight actually starts coming back up? Then that would probably help these to propel. So this is really what I'm going to be looking at this week. I know I'm a little long-winded here, but this is what's kind of important to me is I think we're kind of at a decision point. I did keep on one of my downside plays just in case this happens, that if these do kind of weaken a little bit and come down, and then these go down, generally that's what I've been expecting with this market. So I won't be too surprised if that happens. However, if these things have cycled lower and actually are ready to start moving up, then yes, the market's going to continue to press higher for that. So are we going to go sideways? Or are we going to go down? Let me just jump to the SMH real quick, because here's another way that, since we do have seasonal weakness, and actually let me show you this. I wanted to show you guys this seasonal weakness here. It is time for the VIX to actually start trending upward. As we know, seasonal weakness, August, September, maybe October, seasonal weakness, so the VIX goes up. We have that. We also can show you this. August, seasonally weak. Even September, seasonally weak. We know this. Now, unfortunately, this might actually be so much of a self-fulfilling prophecy that everybody knows about it, and the market is extremely strong. It really is. That maybe the market doesn't really go down. Maybe the market actually just goes sideways. That is totally possible. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. And here is an example of the SMH where for now it is just going sideways. Yes, of course, there are pullbacks, there are down moves, but you can see largely it is really just kind of sideways. And so this is where I may have to temper my downside expectations from the index itself, because you can just see, look at the mega caps, look at the cap weighted indices versus the equal weight. Okay, there's a big difference going on over there. And so yeah, I'm not sure that they're totally ready to break out. So I do think I would like to see if we can get just a little bit more of a pullback, but I don't know if we're going to really get like a down move. You know, I think Friday seemed to be the down move compared to everything else. Okay, and then let's talk about Apple real quick. The big news on Apple, in case you guys didn't know, is they promised to spend another $100 billion on something in America, you know, investment in America, and that basically got them around the tariff situation. Now, I know that everyone's arguing, okay, you know, how can you spend $100 billion on top of the $500 billion anytime soon? This is going to take years, takes time to build factories, all this stuff. That's fine. Remember, the market doesn't care about what's happening right now. It cares about the future prospects. And what the market really cares about is that Apple has figured out a way to get around tariffs. Okay, that's the biggest thing here. So they're spending money to get around tariffs, and the market absolutely loves it. This is a huge stock, and in order to get Apple to move this much, that's a lot of money. A lot of money came into this, and you can see a lot of volume came into this as well, and that is also part of what is keeping the cap weighted indices up. Okay, plus Google was up, plus I think Tesla's starting to kick in too. So we got that. Okay, let's kind of go through the major indices since I've talked to you guys about this and see the differences between all this. As you see, we've got the SPX versus the RSP. Kind of showing you that. We got that major move. We got that move I was looking for, and I was looking for this to bounce back a little bit, and right about here. In fact, if we look at Thursday actually did exactly what I wanted it to. We got a giant gap up like that, and I thought that was going to be a great thing to sell into, and I thought that was actually going to be the trap door for the bulls. It reminds me very much of last Thursday when we had Meta and Microsoft as far as their earnings, and you can see that the market gapped up and then what it sold into. I was really looking for that to be the same thing. Gap up, sell off, and then I wanted to see if we actually come down like this. Those of you in the Moxie room, you guys know I had some trades kind of looking this direction for the UVIX and VIX and stuff like that. The reason why I was looking for that is because this day and this day basically had the same characteristic. Gap up into resistance, couldn't do it, sold off all day long, and I thought it was going to keep coming down. So Friday kind of threw me off. And this is where I had to start changing some things because we do have CPI coming up this week. And I just, I don't want to fight this too much. So I am keeping one downside play as a hedge, as insurance, in case I am actually right at some point, because I'm wondering if this is going to come back down and maybe at least retest the low area before going back up. That is my thought, okay? So if anything to take away, kind of what I'm thinking about for next week, is I would just be very interested to see if we retest the low area, because it just seems very awkward from a technical standpoint and from this price movement. If we've come down, we had one dip, and we just continue to regrow and just continue like that. I would just absolutely love to see if we could do something like that, and then we move up. So we'll see how this actually ages in the next week or so, and see if I'm right about that, because at least I was right about this nice big downside play, but this retracement has gone much further and much longer than I was expecting, and I really wished that we were going to get some more downside follow through after Thursday into Friday. So that's where that has kind of diverged for me. RSP, as I said, look at this, you know, it doesn't look very strong. It's really kind of at a do or die point. Either this is going to get rejected by the hourly 50 and come down, Moxie Indicator below zero, or it's going to actually be able to get over the hourly 50 and start rebuilding to the upside. So really, this coming week is a decision point for the market, for me, to see which way this goes. Does the weakness continue, and that move up that we had in the SPX is going to tap out and we actually start seeing a pullback? Or do things turn around and this is the low and we actually start moving back up? So very, very telling week that should be coming ahead. NASDAQ, basically the same thing. And if we look at the IWM, And through here, you can also see we're kind of in this middle ground. I was expecting price to continue to get rejected by the hourly 50. So far it's holding, but if this starts to roll back down, I wouldn't be surprised. That's kind of what I've been looking for. But if this thing starts to spend time over the hourly 50 and actually hook the hourly 50 up like this and start to work, and the Moxie indicator continues to go green, then I gotta be bullish on this thing. And apparently it just needed like a 4-day pullback into support, and then it's ready to go higher. So we're right in the middle, and we got to figure out if it's going up or down. And the Dow, this is the other thing. I was looking for this to go lower, but perhaps this is kind of, I know it's not a double bottom, but it's what I call a double bottom because this retested the low area. Essentially, that's a double bottom. And if this continues to hold, and then in through here it actually starts to regain the upside, then I gotta say, okay, upside is on. You know, we've done this. But if this starts to lose ground and starts to come back down again, then downside. Okay, so I do think that this week with all the data that's coming out is going to be important. And then if we look at the SMH, once, as I said, you can see here, yes, there have been a couple down days or a couple down moves. You know, down here, even a little down here, but it's all regained it. It has all survived, and so far you can see it's just perfectly going sideways. And that is something that I'm wondering if the overall market is going to start doing, is that, you know, maybe it's not ready to go up, but maybe it's not really ready to go down, and we can get this sideways chop situation as the markets digest earnings and the big move that we had off April and just seasonal weakness and all that kind of stuff. All right, and then FNGS, same thing. This is the FANG stock ETF. And despite Apple, you know, really, really big move in Apple, you can see that this hasn't moved up too much, but it's also not going down anymore, is it? You know, we had our one big move on Friday. We did get closer to the daily 50. I was really hoping that we'd actually get below the daily 50. But again, this market might actually be so darn strong that the major indices like this are just going to go sideways until they're ready to go higher. I don't have any absolutely confirmed entries on these indices yet, but they're not going down. They're having a hard time going down. So try not to fight that too hard. Okay, let's look at breadth, because this is also informative and telling. What I want to show you guys is that we are no longer overbought. This is part of the reason why I was concerned about the market going into last week and expecting a pullback. We did get that pullback. Like, I mean, certainly we saw that pullback on Friday. Now the question is this enough? Is this enough of a pullback that the market can then go higher from here? And that's what I'm going to have to figure out. If not, then this thing rolls over. If it is, then we start going higher. So that's what I'm going to be watching for. But we're no longer overbought. Okay, so if the market wanted to go higher, I would say okay, and I will go with it despite seasonality and all that kind of stuff. Wanted to show you that one. And then if we look at the internals, let me show you this right in through here. And this has been pretty interesting. If we actually zoom out, this is the one I want to show you. Is if we look at the order flow, clearly going into last week, all of last week, we had negative order flow, which was part of the thing that helped me see that this market was going to come down and that we were going to get that drop on Friday, especially after Thursday. I think this was Thursday right there, where we had Meta and Amazon, or Meta and Microsoft report earnings, and they jumped up, but it just wasn't supported by the internals. And so then we got internals on the downside Friday. Of course, we had a rebound move on Monday. Makes sense, not surprised. But look what's been happening all the rest of the week. Almost nothing. Almost nothing. And you can see that the equal weight indices have basically gone down. They're sideways. They're not strong. And then you can see that the cap weighted indices, while they are up, like I showed you, SPY, QQQ, they are up, but they're up on only a handful of stocks. Apple, Google, Tesla a little bit. You know, some of these things have been kind of rotating, keeping the market up. But look, the rest of the market just really is not fully participating. Yes, there have been some crazy earnings moves, but if you just look at, there's just not a lot of order flow. And I thought that to be really interesting. So if you guys are finding that the market's a little bit chaos and crazy right now and not making too much sense, you're not wrong. You're definitely feeling things correctly, and that's what's happening out there. Okay, if we look at the VIX, the setups that I was looking for, I got one of them, and then basically no setup after that. Definitely got that setup. And then ever since here, I've been looking to see if this pullback is going to catch support and give us another move to the upside. And as you can see, since the cap weighted indices didn't go down, there's no problem with the VIX, and the VIX just kept going down and down and down. No setup, no signal. Yeah, I felt like I was actually trying to hit my head against a wall on something like this, because I kept looking for this pullback to gain traction and start to go up, and it just wouldn't happen. And it was because the mega caps kept the market propped up, and that's what happened. And same thing here. I kept looking for the UVIX to hold support, and it just didn't happen. So yeah, I tried this one a couple times. Again, kind of just hit my head against the wall, and for every time I thought this thing was going to turn up, the market just went higher. And this was exactly it. I told you guys Thursday I was expecting some downside follow through on Thursday, since Thursday sold off. Didn't happen. Market continued going up on Friday, and once that happened, I was like, all right, I just gotta say, throw in the towel on these things and say, at least for right now, it's not working. I don't really want to hold it over the weekend. We've got some news coming up this coming week, and I said I don't want to just keep hanging on to this stuff. So I had to turn those in and say I'm moving on for now. Okay, then let's look at BMNR. This is one of the notable names this week. We have been waiting for this. I took an earlier trade over here. We got taken out, stopped out early. I said, that's fine. And then when this thing came down, I was like, it's looking interesting, looking like it's starting to hold. And then sure enough, it started to engage, and we got in here, and I said, look, this might be a big mover. I don't know, but I feel like I'm chasing a little bit, but I still want to get in. So we jumped in right there, and we are plus 35% already. Not too shabby. And there's huge volume on this. I love this name. It's great. Obviously, it's got a lot of attention and a lot of popularity. It's really been making the rounds. If I can find any kind of pullback on these things, I'm going to be adding more. This is a great name, and I'm really looking forward to it. A-Lab, one of the trades that benefited from the Microsoft and Meta earnings that had great news. So we got in right there. Absolutely perfect entry on that one. I took a little bit off here just because the name popped up and I wasn't sure what was going on with it. And then I took a little bit more off here because earnings, you just never know. And then on the upside, fantastic, great move. And I just said, hey, I'm done. I'm getting out. And so I cashed in 400. Let's see. So this one was 120% gain. This one was 225% gain. And then this one was 470% gain. Great trade. And I even told everybody I'm going bigger on this one. So ever since the SOXL trade where I made 2,000% and turned $38,000 into $630-something thousand, the Moxie subscribers would say like, hey, let us know when you might be going a little bit bigger on something like that. So I said, all right, this one looks like this is going to be a pretty good thing because it had such a good flag. I said, look, I'm going bigger on this one. And hopefully people understood what I was saying there, and I think that a lot of people in the Moxie room benefited from that. So ultimately 470% gain as we were taking profits along the way on that one. Great trade. Okay, TEM, this is the Nancy Pelosi stock. This one we have been in for quite some time. I did have to ride this one out for a little bit. We've been taking some heat on it, but I did say, look, I think the bigger picture looks good. I think this stock will certainly be a formidable name into the future, and we're just going to have to wait. You know, maybe there looks like a setup here. We're going to have to wait a little bit more. Came down here a little bit more, and I said, look, I'm already in. I think we'll be okay. I'm just going to roll the dice on earnings and see what happens. And sure enough, it popped up. It settled in a little bit. So now we're good. I think we're about break even on my original entry for this stock. And because of this earnings and because the market actually seems like it's doing okay, I added to this one on Friday. I actually started putting some options on this thing. So yeah, I think TEM, it might still take some time to warm up, but I think this thing is looking pretty good. And I'm happy that it survived earnings and looks great on that one. And then Figma. I know this is another big name that just came out there. It made a history because it was at $35 is what they were going to IPO at, and then they had to delay the IPO opening because it just kept going up in price. They got out at something like $92 and then it ran up to $104. Great. I made a video about this just as we were all waiting for this thing to debut, and I said, hey, lots of attention. That's cool. You know, it's probably going to be a really big popular name. If you're a day trader, go crazy with it. Have fun. Figure out how to trade this thing. But as a swing trader, I said, this thing's too new. I have no history with it, and I'm going to have to just wait until it settles down. And this is part of why I let these things settle down, because other than, I think, about a day or two where there was some movement in here, you can see since then it's just kind of come down. This is why, as a swing trader or an investor, I'm not ready to touch this thing. It hasn't done anything other than that first initial run. So it's fine, just wait. You don't have to be the first one into some of these things. And you can see if you bought it anywhere on these first couple days, you're now negative. All right, so just wait. But I do think it's going to be an interesting name. I'll keep watching it and see if there's any trades. All right, Tesla. I'm going to be mentioning this one because we've been watching this one for quite some time. And it's actually had a good last few days. And you actually see here, it looks like it's starting to break out a bit. I have been telling you all on the videos and in my trading room, I said, I think Tesla, the company, and Tesla, the stock, are going to be just fine. And I think that they have a lot of things in their future that will help them out. And I think the stock will eventually go higher. I don't know when, but I wouldn't bet against it. Okay, so that has been my theme and comment the entire time. And what you can see here is now we actually kind of have more of a pennant. And I'm wondering if, basically Friday, if that was the beginning of the breakout on this thing. So we did take a starter position on Tesla. And the other thing, just remember, the kitchen sink has basically been thrown at Tesla. Elon said something again, and then they had poor earnings because car sales and stuff like that. And yet, you know what the stock's doing? It's putting in higher lows. You got to look at what the performance of the stock is doing. Okay, this thing has had all the opportunity to go lower, and it won't go lower. I think you should pay attention to that. Okay. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good time with that. Remember, if you are interested how to choose the right stock, we had a great 1.5 hour long class with this. A lot of people in there, they really enjoyed it. So come on over to simplertrading.com/Moxie, and you can sign up now. You can still get these classes. They're in the library, and so you can sign up and watch them right away. Okay, guys, we'd love to see you there. Sign up, say hi when you come into the room, and we'll see you next week. Take care.